Well, a very good evening from wherever you're joining us here in Nairobi and across the country. My name is Maria Yambo, and of course this is the Scorecard, where we have, the current conversations of what is happening around the country, what is concerning you and the country at large. And tonight we want to base our talk on the KCPE results that were released maybe 2 weeks ago. So the results were released, and with it came a lot of uproar, a lot of anger, both from the parents and the learners, and it's all about unfairness in terms of the results that were released. That is according to the parents, the schools, and even the learners. And authorities, some of them have gone to the courts, including the LSK, just to demand for the remarking of the KCPE results. Those are some of the things that we'll be looking at today on the Scorecard together with my guests. Of course, the courts also did rule that the Form 1 selections must go on even as parents went to the courts. So we want to talk about that, and we also want to find out what is the way forward for the parents and the learners in as far as those who had complaints are concerned. Well, to help me, talk about this and to unpack this particular discussions, I have my guests in studio, none other than the resident analyst, that is Professor Ogola, in studio with us. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you very much, Miriam. I'm humbled to be with you here, and my colleague also around, George and Benson.
Yeah, of course, you have Benson Macero, who is a career program manager with a vast experience in education and youth development programs. He is bringing his experience and expertise in the field of education to make us understand the gaps in the Kenya National Examinations Council and how to address them. Welcome, Benson, to the program.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers. And Maria, thank you for having me on the show.
Indeed. And also George Yogo, a leadership trainer and life coach, a consultant. And Yogo conducts several career clinics, capacity building and leadership development forums. He's bringing his skills on the show to demonstrate the path that the KCPE candidates are waiting to join Form 1 next year should pursue to make progress in their lives in order to attain, greater fulfillment. Welcome to the program, George.
Thank you so much, Mary.
So thank you so much, gentlemen, for making it to the program. And I just want to start by, first of all, familiarizing ourselves. Benson, you are a career, you are a career program manager with vast experience in youth development programs. Maybe you can just bring us up to speed with what you do.
Yeah, I do work for Education for All Children, which is an organization that seeks to support young people within the country who are bright, but they may not be able to access education. Basically, it's a scholarship organization that works towards getting young people into employment to improve lives across the country. We do this by not only just focusing on education, but also having skills development, making sure that they are mentored through career development, by also focusing on other aspects like mental health, reproductive health, to make sure that we are holistically developing people who will drive the country forward.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. What about you, George? You are a leadership trainer and a life coach. What does that entail?
Well, I do life coaching. The reason why we do life coaching is if you've looked at the global trends, and particularly if I come to the region, there is a great disconnect between academics and employability. And so to try and bridge the gap, we do the coaching period, and that, by and large, is determined by what we are discussing today, the content and the quality of education that we go through. And I also look at leadership because apparently there has been a misunderstanding and a misrepresentation of what leadership is. Most people often equate position to leadership. And that is why sometimes we even end up referring to what we would call as those who occupy political positions as leadership. Because apparently we assume that appointment or election confers on people the ability to disseminate or undertake leadership responsibilities. So my responsibility in leadership coaching and training is to try and inculcate and imbibe in the people the virtues that are necessary for leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor, a governance expert. Just briefly, just let us, our viewers, especially for the sake of our viewers, maybe there's somebody watching you for the first time.
Yeah, first of all, I've been a professor in a university for over 12 years, teaching strategy, corporate governance, decision making. And of course, I'm a consultant with Trailblazer Business Strategies. So matters governance, economics are my forte. And of course, having been a teacher from primary school, so we have grown through the ranks. I'm sure even to become a coach, you must have grown through the ranks. So we've grown through the ranks from the very bottom going up.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I want us to start this discussion, but we want to base it, first of all, on some other sentiments by parents and learners. Let's get that clip running, and then we'll be coming back with the conversation.
The mutilation and the adulteration of the KCPE exam results for our pupils and the kids of this country is very worrying.
We as parents, we know the capacity and the abilities of our children. We have worked with the children since they were born, since they started school. We know what they were capable of doing.
We had very high expectations in our examination, knowing that we were going to top Nyanza region. But then when the results came out, we were more than devastated. It's beyond expectation. We know that those weren't our marks.
I got 303, and I really did not expect such marks because I knew I had prepared very well. I had worked tooth and nail. In the previous exams, I was getting 390, nothing lower than 390, and in third term, most of the time I got 400.
I was asking myself, what is the probability of 32 students in the same school sitting for a science multi-choice exam getting 75%? Assuming that all the 32 students have the same probability of getting 75 marks, they have the same potential of getting 75 marks. The math actually says it is 2.447935 times 10 to power negative 92. It is extremely unlikely.
Honorable Speaker, how do you explain that students in a certain school are awarded marks for subjects they did not sit for? Honorable Speaker, there is a problem in this country. There is a problem with the Ministry of Education. There is a problem with NEC.
Of course, those are sentiments by the stakeholders, those who are concerned in as far as the KCPE results are concerned. And probably I want to bring you in now and, wanting to start with, what are some, what is your take, Benson, in as far as those sentiments are concerned?
Yeah, I do understand the cry of the parents and the children, because exams in this country, or rather under the current system, mean a lot, especially at the basic education. If you look at it, it is a do or die, because you have to transition from the primary school to the secondary school, and the determinant here is the marks. So if you feel like what you worked for is not what you got, it's really disheartening, because definitely you will not get into the school that you wanted. And somehow this will have a negative, impact on the child's mental stability as they transition, in as much as they may just have to move forward. But until they are very confident that what they have is what they got, then there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. George, when you listen to that clip, as a life coach, what do you think are some of the emotional issues that these students or these learners could be going through right now?
You see, generally, exam has been made to look like a sentence to life. And more so, the primary education and the secondary education exams have become major determinants in life. Ideally, people tend to believe that what you get from the primary school, what you get from your exams, should influence what you become in life generally. And because this has been looked at I don't say it's objective, but that is how we have proportionately put it, so that people tend to believe that if I fail in my exams, then I'm a failure in life. So when a child expectation is not met, generally even in life, I'm a believer in the Bible, and the Bible says that hope deferred makes the heart sick. So generally, when what you had expected or anticipated does not happen based on your preparation, then the people are basically broken down. So there is a lot of trauma. I remember when my last-born daughter sat for her exams, whatever she had expected to get is not what she got. So we had to take her through a process of reassurance to let her know, well, you may have not gotten what you wanted to get, but what you got is able to still push you ahead. So except and unless that child has a way of getting reassurance in life, definitely it's a trauma they would live with. Because even if they go to secondary, they might not perform as they ought to have performed earlier because they're emotionally broken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, emotional brokenness. Prof, if I may bring you in, have we put too much emphasis on exams? Is to the extent that people are actually going to court to ensure that they get the results that they expected?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mariambo. First of all, it's good to relate to this. When we were all in primary school, I remember the day the KCPE results came out when I was a young boy. They announced in church, and they told us, I was in Jera Primary School, and they said in church, the results are out, can you go and pick them? And you see, from church to our home, the school was in between. I could not go. I just passed and I went home because I could not just compose myself and to go and take results because it was highly competitive. I wanted to go to a very good school. I wanted to go to St. Mary's Yala. So I was thinking this is going to be a sentence on my future. So when I went there, my brother went and checked and told me, Fred, you know what? Your grade looks like you can go to St. Mary's Yala. That's when I went to check my results. So I'm just looking at this, what they also went through, because I'm sure all of us sitting on this table went through that process. But when you talk about emphasis, students are Marxists. Marxist means Marx is the most important thing. In fact, if you want to know that, Mariambo, do you know the highest bought newspaper is on the day results are released? There is no day newspapers have the highest circulation than that day. It shows that even not Christmas, not even on election day, the day people receive results, if you ask anybody who does newspaper distribution, because I'm in business for a while, I do a lot of training, that's the day that people buy most newspapers. In fact, that day also Safaricom makes a lot of money. People checking their marks and the rest. So it's a very big day. It's a day bigger than Christmas. So you can imagine, if that day for you is not Christmas, what's the opposite, what people are feeling? But allow me just to talk about what is exam integrity. Exam integrity begins with the issue of development of exam. Development means setting of this exam. How is it set? Is it set depending on what these children are going through, what we are being taught? Is it according to the curriculum, according to the syllabus? Is it an exam that tests people equally, whereby not some people looking like monkeys, while others looking like fish, others looking at elephant, yet people should be climbing a tree as an exam? Because sometimes you might find that some people are doing an exam that they are completely unprepared depending on their circumstances. So development. The second part is the issue of preparation of the pupils. How prepared are they in a way that makes them ready for the exam, that tests them in a way that there's no discrimination? And the third one is about the administration of the exam itself, now the actual sitting of exam. How is it administered in a way that some people didn't start late, and everybody got equal amount of time, equal amount of, let's say, chance of success? Then from administration, now we go to the issue of marking. Are they marked with integrity? Are they marked according to the way they were set, because they are marking scheme and the rest? And of course, lastly, is the release of the results. Because sometimes you can find that all that has happened well, but when you are coming to release, the grades that that number A gets was given to number B, and number C gets the ones for number D. So if you look at all that process, defines exactly how things should be done. So exam integrity is not just about the fact that cheating and the rest. Is about how is it that exam can actually tell who was better at what. And then lastly, CBC is not being seen on this day of exam because it's about the intellectual, that is the mind, but also about the heart is never tested. And that's why the issue, people feel that what you get as a mark is more important than who you are as a person. Because you should test the head, should test the heart, you should also test the soul, but also test the physique. Okay. This was CBC was meant to. So I'm trying to say that even with this KCPE, is this the last KCPE?
Yes.
No, this is the last KCPE.
Yeah, the last KCPE. Yes. I'm sure that it has shown that was the dark era of KCPE. We should just move on to CBC.
Okay, so you're in support of CBC, but we'll be getting to that conversation about whether CBC is also likely to fall into the same traps, you know, and all that. But Benson,
yes.
Do you agree that there is a problem with the Kenya National Examinations Council in as far as this is concerned?
Technically, looking at the complaints that are being raised, it shows scientifically there is a problem, because if the public do not have confidence in such an institution that has a huge responsibility that defines people's dreams, then it means there is either a communication breakdown or, as Prof has outlined, the entire process of the integrity of the exam, especially at the administration. You may want to note that this year, the minister, when he was releasing the results, he said that we had fewer cases of cheating. Actually, if I recall, I think he said there are only 2 cases. So it means on the student side, things were okay because they were well prepared and they really went in and gave their best. But now the challenges we are seeing are coming in at the tail end, where the results are being released and people are not sure that these are the results that they deserve. Here, NEC has to come in and restore public confidence. Otherwise, there's a problem. Yes.
Oh, okay. And you know, you've talked about the malpractice and all that. That is one thing that we always look out for, like how many people will be caught cheating or whatever it is. And like you said, this time the CS for Education did say there were fewer cases, of malpractice and all that. And so, George, I'm just wondering, do you think then that there is need for reorganization of the whole NEC?
The term education is drawn from a Latin word, educare, that is E-D-U-C-A-R-E, which means to draw out of, to bring out of. Like I mentioned earlier in a program we had again still in KBC, I said education does principally 2 things. Number 1, it introduces you to yourself and to the world around you. And then number 2, it empowers you to maximize that which you have identified. The problem that we are facing is that we have conceptualized academics and education around exams. If you look at what we call the global competence matrix, it outlines what is expected in examinations at the end of a period of training. One of those things, it talks about the ability of an individual to investigate the world. That is why it talks about empowering you, introducing you to yourself and to the world around you, and to empowering you to maximize that which you've identified. So if the process of education does not enable you to investigate the world, for example, then you do not attain one of the factors in the global competence matrix. And number 2 is to realize and recognize perspectives. And that is a factor that must be taken into consideration. And I'm looking at number 3, to communicate ideas. Today, we are, and I mentioned from the onset that we have a great disconnect between academics and employability. It is in this country today, and Prof will bear me a witness, that you get graduates who cannot satisfactorily express themselves in English. So I do not subscribe to the same thought as he of CBC. But I tend to believe that the content that we are passing to the people is what has a problem, and that is why the passage of exams becomes a problem. We must not overemphasize on the passage of exam, because therefore schools train for passing of exam, not passing on of knowledge. And number 2, we must never politicize academics. Those of us who've been around this country for too long, we realize that exams have basically been politicized.
Really?
When you had a minister who was coming from Central Kenya, then you realize the schools in Central Kenya perform better. When we went to Kisii, then the schools around that place must perform better. It is because the weight of responsibility is put on the individual who is in charge of that docket to ensure that his region performs better. We must move from the aspect, well, which I appreciate CBC is trying to do, we must move from the aspect of passing exams and of burdening the kids with only 3 days, for example, for primary exams, for example, with only those 3 days. So you work towards the 3 days. We need to prepare them for life. An individual once said that we can never prepare the future for our children, but we can prepare our children for the future. So summarily, we need to relook the aspect of our academics. I have always been in support of the original 844. Because if you looked at the original 844, it is far much better even compared to the content of delivery in what CBC is talking about. Because I say that it's not the number of years that a person spends in school, but it's in the content that is packaged in that child. If you looked at the original 844, you realize the schools then, I think Prof must have gone to school around that period of time, you realize the schools then had farms and you could do proper agriculture. The schools during that period of time were training carpentry, and it was proper carpentry. We did arts and craft. There was music, and it was practical music, and you learn practical professional music in schools, home science. And so even if you finished Form 4 and never made it to the university, you had the skill set that you require to let you survive in the world. Today we are talking about tertiary institutions, and had we adopted the original concept, that was not watered down what we have currently. I don't support what we had currently, but in the 38 years that the exam has been, or KCPE was introduced 38 years ago, the original concept is what the CBC now is trying to adopt.
So according to you, you feel like
it's content.
We should have just gone back to the original.
We would have either have gone back to the original 844 or tried to look into what is the content that we're delivering to the people and what is the target of the process of academics, not the last day of exams. Because otherwise we have over-exalted the exams at the expense of knowledge to the kids. And so you realize the child is thrown into the labor market, but is unripe, is immature. And so even the labor market does not accept them. And if you employ them, then you spend several years trying to train them to adopt into the system. And once they discover themselves, they leave your organization.
You know, Prof, the main issue, I mean, we've had problems before. You know, this is not the first time, for instance, that people are complaining about their results. Maybe this time it has been, you know, can I say it has exploded, if I may use the word. But what do you think could have caused the anomalies? Because at the end of the day, they use machines to mark these exams. In your thinking, I know you're not an expert in that, but in your thinking, what do you think could have gone wrong?
I think that one thing which we pointed out as an academic, and also as Linda Jami, we said that there was a rush to release results, but not quality, because it's not an election. It's not that hour whereby, you know, if you don't declare results, there will be chaos. There was time. Look,
and the season is not bound by law.
They are not bound by law. There is not so much pressure to release these results. That I'm trying to say that the integrity is even just releasing results. What could have happened if they waited for 1 more week and rectified all those errors? They could even offer an audit process to check it. Like you see, I said I was waiting for these things like life and death. It looks like after that, you are either a failure or not. And in fact, I also want to raise this point home to the parents who are listening to me back at home. I've been telling people, never use the verb to be to your child. Don't tell them you are a failure. Just tell them, in the maths exam, you scored 40. You know, when you say a failure in maths, it is something you carry to your grave. Or if, for example, I don't tell my son, you are lazy. I just tell him, you didn't do your homework. Because the verb to be really makes someone say, no, for me, I'm a failure. Or for me, I'm lazy. Or for me, I'm a joker. Those words should never be used to anyone. Actually, you should not put the word to be to somebody. You are not God. Let God judge people, but just tell them, you didn't get higher marks in maths. That is not, they're not a failure, but they didn't get higher marks in maths. So I'm trying to suggest that there's a way we are trying to rush things, and I think the thing was more rushing. You know, the first thing was done by Matiang'i. It's Matiang'i who came with these things for releasing results even before people eat Christmas. Before, you used to eat chapati, you enjoy, is when you hear that results have gone south. So even if they've gone south, you have taken Christmas. This time they're looking at you when you eat chapati, they tell you, no, we're not going to chapati hapa. Now your exams look crazy. So I'm thinking that was not right. But at the same time, let me just try to highlight even the reason why the cheating was not much the issue. It has come to a time when parents are more worried about the exam for their children more than the children. And I think this is also pressure, because when your child knows that exams are too important to you as a parent, you also put emotional pressure. You've overburdened them. And in fact, that's why I wanted to just highlight that one of the 7 reasons, just the 7 reasons why people cheat quickly. One is that poor time management. If you didn't manage your time well, you'll be feeling that you're unprepared, so you're looking for means to rush the exam. The other one is to call stress or overload. Like I said, you just all of a sudden find that you're overstressed and the parents are overloaded. I want an A. You should be going to Starehe. So imagine, I'm not capable of going to Starehe, and you're I should go to Starehe. I'm waiting for you. Like my father told me, Fred, give me a calling letter. I do not want to look for schools. So I was under pressure to leave. That's why I could not even check my results. The other thing, wanting to help friends. You know, sometimes you are cheating because you are a clever child and there's a person you want to help in a class, and by trying to help them, you end up cheating. And when you cheat, you also lose your exams. So you should not be under pressure to help a friend. Let them, friendship is outside the exam. Then fear of failure, like I told you. You can go to the exam with pressure because the whole village looks into you. Like when I was going to school, the whole village was looking and saying, this is our son. So he said, our son, don't let us down. You know, even you walk through town, you feel the pressure. Then the 5th one is everyone does it phenomenon that, don't worry, everyone who got an A is cheating. So this phenomenon can make you cheat as the 5th one. The 6th one is, I would call it a temptation, just because of an unmonitored situation. For example, you are in an exam room, and you find, for example, the teacher has gone to the to the washroom and there is no any other person watching. So such like things, you can be able to find some papers leaking somewhere. So also you need the environment, administration to show that everybody has no chance whatsoever to cheat. And of course, lastly, different understanding of what's exam integrity. People say that if I carry a piece of paper, I'm not really cheating, I'm just having more Kenya. So I'm trying to say that we need also to educate the parents to really lower this pressure. We need to tell exam markers and the one releasing results, there is no pressure. These results can be released even in December, actually even mid-December, or if you like, you can do them early January. But there's this thing where saying that parents may need to know where their kids are going on time. But I also think that parents should just be prepared about taking their kids to school. There's no much preparation that you're going to get money between now and January. So I think that the pressure of people hurrying to release results by trying to meet Matiang'i, if you're not Matiang'i, you're not Matiang'i.
So you're
if you're not
thinking like
Magoha,
this
you're
was
not
supposed
Magoha.
to...
Do things in the right manner. Don't rush if you're not good at what you want to do.
Okay, so keeping up with the past regime and all that, that's probably what you're trying to say, so that they're not questioned, like
because
how
this is
come
Kenya
we're able to
Kwanza,
get...
that was Jubilee.
Exactly.
And Kenya Kwanza cannot be Jubilee, and Jubilee cannot be Kenya Kwanza. There are some things Kenya Kwanza will do much more than Jubilee.
Okay. I want
and
to
we
take
should
a break.
Compete on administration. We should just ensure the integrity of exam is, like you said, a political process.
Yes.
Okay. So just hold that thought, Professor, and we'll be back to talk much more about exam integrity, basing it on the just released KCPE results, which has caused a lot of uproar among parents and even learners and school management, really, you know, saying that the results that they got, a section of them, not all of them, because again, we'll be talking about that. There are those who probably benefited from this particular mess, so we'll be getting to that. and whether moving forward, you know, and getting these exams remarked, if at all is possible, is something that, you know, people will support. So we'll be back in just a short moment. We are here on the Scorecard.
Cheza Loto Moto.
School fees ya mtoto imelipwa, lakini bado tunataka kuendelea throughout.
Loto Moto imekuja kwa maisha yetu when I needed it the most. That is all I can say for now. I'm so grateful. May God bless you.
Cheza Loto Moto. Shinda pesa moto moto.
Beberu hakutaka kutia Sukuru mbele, hakutaka kufanya chochote, na kwa hivyo watu wakawa hawana nafasi.
Ijapokuwa watu wakisema kufundisha watoto watapata kazi wapi?
Our villages and towns are powered by electricity.
How has Kenya fared in the realization of her independence clarion call of eliminating ignorance, poverty and diseases? Kenya at 60, a special KBC coverage beginning Monday, the 4th of December to Jamhuri Day.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching the Scorecard, and the program tonight we're talking about the integrity of the exam results, and that is the KCPE results. I'm here with Professor Fred Gola, who is a leadership and governance expert. We also have Benson Macero, who is a career program manager, together with George Yogo, a leadership trainer and life coach. And we've just been taking stock of what has happened in the few weeks that the KCPE results were released. We've seen uproar from the parents, from the learners, and even the school management and some of the stakeholders within the education sector. And so we've just been unpacking what has happened and what could have gone wrong in as far as those results are concerned. For instance, Benson, there's a school, I think, if I'm not wrong, that all the students got more or less the same, marks. How possible is it? Because NEC did respond to that and say that it is not really, abnormal for that to happen.
Yeah, I think the scientist, I think someone was mentioning, I think it was some MP giving the formula, the probability. It's extremely not possible to have that happen unless it is the highest mark, and it means all the students scored 100%. That's if you standardize. So technically, then this raises a question of how true is it? But again, as I said earlier, when the public questions an institution of such a magnitude, then it means that credibility is really being questioned. So ideally, to tie on that point, exams are supposed to test the skills and competencies of a person. But when we theoretically push the narrative that, it's like a supreme judgment for you to go to the next level, such kind of scenarios are really like taint the integrity of the exam body. So that is, to me, something that needs to be looked into, because why one school? If it is possible, as NEC would say, then we should have these cases at least. There are many schools out of...
spread across schools.
Yeah, it could be spread across schools. Or maybe the percentage should be at least 75% of this happened in several schools. But then one school, no, the scientists can tell us.
It's questionable.
Yes.
So George, we were talking with one of my colleagues and we were wondering, is it time to change how our students are examined? I know we're moving to the CBC. This is the last cohort of the 844 KCPE, but definitely going into KCSE. There'll be the last, cohort that will do the 844 system. But should students now be more, can I say, examined on the abilities to understand and not multiple choice kind of questions?
I have talked about the global competence matrix. One of them, and the most important one, is the ability to investigate the world. I read about some study that was done by Harvard University, and they say only 20% of what a person becomes in life is as a result of aptitude. 80% is as a result of attitude. So that should lead us to rethink how then do we handle our children as they grow up, and what is it that we expose them to? The question should be building of ability. Like I mentioned earlier on, I said the essence of education is to get to know yourself and then know the world around you. And number two, be empowered to maximize that which you've identified. I listened to my bishop, Dr. Edepo, one day said that success is not abroad, success is inboard. Before you can travel far, you need to travel deep within. Personal discovery, so that you're able to explore what is available for you and based on what is happening around the world. And that would define your ability to perform optimally. What academics does, for example, is to make you effective, but efficiency is through the exercise of the process. So we must be very categorical on what we give our children. So for me, it is not about, and I asked this during the radio show, I said, do we still feel that the multiple choice questions are valid? To what extent do they test the children's ability? How could it be if we gave these children the ability to grow, explore their ability, build their talent and skill, and explore different fields that they would want to explore, then give them the analysis so that we can analyze their potential and their ability to grow and to exercise that which they have developed. So we move away from the life sentence that we put. Because so far as it is in this country, an exam is a life sentence. It is either you are doomed for life or you step onto a rung on the ladder that will take you into success. It's maybe not probably the best to say when we are talking to the kids about examining them, but the truth is this, the world is controlled by failures. Almost 80% of the A's work for 20% of the C's. Because what happens is then the school has sufficiently developed conventional thinkers, people who do not think beyond the classrooms into which they sat. They can therefore not flip the other side of the coin. So our academic process must therefore demystify this process and enable us to build character, build skill, and develop quality in the children, not just work towards passing exams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prof, do you think like what some of the stakeholders, the parents, the learners, have gone to court to seek justice? Do you think this is the way to go? Will it change anything?
Well, of course, everything has a legal basis, and going to court is not something you can talk about, stop somebody from going. But the question is that where will they be able to get what they are seeking in court? How much evidence do they have? Or just show of disparity?
The burden of proof.
The burden of proof might not be enough. So as far as I'm concerned, where will it leave these children? And remember, the court process might take maybe longer. By that time, maybe these kids will still be waiting for a court process. I'm just imagining the emotional thing these kids have to go to. Of course, you can go to court and certify this matter as urgent and should be listened to and be determined. I've been to court with the 26 cases, of course, against different institutions and government. I know very well that they might not work as fast as you want them. And the judges also tell you they are not in a hurry to do the things you want to be done. They might also have to do them in a certain way because there's so much evidence you need to really prove. Because no sense, if they make a pronouncement that the results were fraudulent,
it will affect.
What do you think about the Kenyan education system? What does that make of other people who would have still even joined Form 1? If, for example, you are a head teacher in a secondary school, and you hear the results being determined by the court to have been fraudulent or flawed, if you like. How do you take those people? Then the employers are waiting for the year. It's something which is more serious than you can take. That's why for me, instead of going to court, we could have just done an audit and look for the way forward and maybe find a way on which we can help the very affected children rather than going to court to make a blanket statement. But at the same time, as a corporate governance expert, everyone should be given a right. If you want to go to court, just go to court. No one should tell you not to go to court, because that's where courts exist. And I think that going to court is fine. Nevertheless, I'm just asking for the implications of this one in everyone. At the same time, I also believe somehow that education should be left in the hands of the learner. If, for example, you see parents calling press conference on behalf of children, I don't know. I know that they're still minor, but nevertheless, at primary school, I was around 12 years. At 12 years, I think that I could speak for myself. And there are mechanisms within the school so that the school head teachers would be able to represent the parents, because also the school has a board. And when parents go on their own, because you can call the media, because of course you can call the media and tell them, I want to talk. What's the procedure? Should this not be addressed by the schools? There's the school boards. Those we call the provincial schools. The schools associations. There were better ways to sit down with different stakeholders, because I told you the exam is a long process that involves so many people that someone can just say, I'm a parent, I'm calling a press statement. Because nowadays media has become, you can even call digital media, which where there's no verification, people can say anything. I'm not saying to say there's nothing went wrong, but I've gone to developed countries, there's a very clear way in which you address those issues.
So you think by taking this thing to court is more kind of, can I say, affecting the children more?
Yeah, because it's affecting them. And you know, for them, they're maybe George knows how to deal with it. But I am talking about myself, Mariambo. At that young age, if I had that the results are still going to court, could you imagine what you are going through? You are going into Christmas. Some people have grades. Some people are waiting to know their fate when it goes to court. Even I see when I was a professor, you have done exam and somebody was not able to do the exam on that day. When they go to class, somebody have done exam, somebody has not done exam, they don't know whether they are passed or failed. There's always that anxiety, even among elder people. So I'm looking at a 12-year-old child, 11-year-old child, whose fate hangs on court. And then, of course, we know what the court has been known for. People are saying that you really don't get justice from court because the might wins. They say in the justice system, the might is right. So who is the mighty here? The mighty is the education system, who will be defended by Attorney General, who has lawyers on their behalf. It's become difficult for these people. And I find this one will have been addressed by the school system with the parent and the board association than the parent individually going to court, because that might be a long route. At the same time, we might not get the truth of the matter, because when they go to court, I'm sure that the school, the NEC and even the Ministry of Education is going to be, rather than solve the problem, become more defensive.
Maybe in just seconds. You see, the advocates talk about jurisprudence. The ruling on the exams would not only just affect the people who went to court. If, for example, the court rules that the outcome was not the reality, then that puts the entire examination in question. So it will not only affect those who have gone to school, those who have gone to court, which means by a simple ruling that
it can mess the entire
it will mess the entire exam.
So are we saying then
it depends on the ask in court.
It's trying to protect, but there is a mess that needs to be cleaned.
The truth is, there is a mess. This is something that we cannot run away from. And this mess is human and it is intentional. Because like I was mentioning to Prof earlier, if you talk to teachers, they will tell you even the 2022 elections had what they called the rationing. They did some rationing, and that is why, because they were looking at the intake into secondary schools. It's something that nobody wanted to talk about, but there was rationing even in the last examinations that happened last year. So it's a process that I've been trying to do over a period of time. The question is, why do they do it? If the machines marked the exams, and you would say that the machine was incorrectly set, and that is why you find errors in particular areas, then you amended the setting of that machine to do the right thing, then why didn't you remark the ones that you marked wrongly? Okay. And if the machines mark the results, they give you the results, then the imputation, the other question is, was it human imputation or machine imputation? If it is human imputation, it means that these results were lost at the human intervention.
Okay, so the mess is there, we all agree.
Yes.
But
there
the
is
problem
a very
is,
huge
the problem,
mess.
Mariambo, is if this was another country, somebody would have gone home. These kids are crying, they are in trouble, but somebody in the office enjoying the lagas of these officers, enjoying all the benefits they're having, and they feel nothing. They can only go to court and make this. That's why I don't want the court process. For me, these people who are involved in this process should be actually be done a proper audit rather than going to court, because court may not do a real serious audit, do an audit, people found liable, they should go home. Because why should you play with the future of a child in education? Can you imagine, Mariambo, if someone played with your future, you couldn't be in KBC?
Yeah. Yeah, the buck stops definitely with the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
They need to come out, you know, and communicate clearly probably what happened, which we can bet we might not really get to the bottom of the truth. But I do get your sentiments of the fact that these are children. They've worked hard through the 8 years. And Yogo, you're saying it's more of a results-oriented. So one exam, you know, yeah, it's one exam that determines so much about your life. And so a lot is at stake. And right now, this is KCP, but you're heading to KCSE. So I do not know how this KCS, you know, the candidates, you know, the jitters they have. If this has happened like this, so what's next for us? So Benson, what do you think that NEC needs to do to avoid this kind of, can I say, a mess as we wait for the KCSE results to come out?
I think this should be an eye-opener, because NEC has to now relook at the administrative bit of the exams. With the KCSE still underway being marked, it is important that they step back and you know, try and look at what could be the problem. They need to make some structural changes, especially, you know, I think the biggest problem comes in after marking. KCSE is purely human, you know, marked by the teachers. It's not like the KCPE that
There's
is machine marked.
human intervention.
Yeah, human intervention is there. So I think the problem is not at that level. The problem perhaps is at the tallying stage, making sure assigning grades and standardization, and then release of the results. So they should take time, as Prof has said, or do not rush to cope with the previous regime so that you are proving a point. You have no idea what system was in place. How were they doing it? So develop your own system that is tamper-proof, whereby people will have confidence in it. As Prof has said, parents will always come and say, I expected my child to do well, but then let us leave it also to the school, the teacher, and the children. Because like there are cases where schools say that our performance has been at this level. They are in a position to professionally gauge that there is an anomaly. Because every parent will always want their child to get the top mark, whether they were always performing. And if you open up these to courts, everyone will go to court. Those who don't have money will not go to court. So if the court can order to remark for the few, isn't that now even making it worse? And if you declare all the entire results null and void, there are those who passed, you know.
Genuinely.
There are those who passed genuinely. There are those who might have benefited from the error. So if you tell them now downgrade your marks, will they'll still go to court. So it will be a circus. So I think it's we have to draw lessons from here, so that in the next few weeks, maybe as we at the turn of the year, we are getting credible results. Take time. That's what I would say.
So when you talk about lessons to be learned from this particular mess, Prof, do you think that there needs to be some reorganization because there's people who need to take responsibility of this at the Kenya National Examinations Council?
You see, Mariambo, you cannot go to Mombasa with the wrong map. You can't go to Garissa with the wrong map. There's a wrong map here because this has been systemic.
Yes.
It was there. Maybe what is happening is that the level at which it has been exposed is so high. I'm told that a thief is not caught on the first day they are selling, unless you are very unlucky.
40th day.
They always 40 days. So this one is the 40th day, means that it's been there. So there must be a serious reorganization of the system. Fortunately, when I was coming here, I passed just in front of the NEC office. It's next to State House. I'm sure you know that place. And I was saying, wow, these are the guys. But anyway, the point I'm trying to draw home here is that we cannot continue with the same tools that creates a problem and thinking the very same tools can solve it. Remember, why Matiang'i went and did all that, and even Magoha, they had said there was a serious rot in the system. Go and check the newspaper headlines before they went those officers, before KCPE and KCSE results came early. They said there was a serious rot. So did they sort up the rot, but now when they left, the rot came back? What we need to know. What changes did they do? Did they change the processes, systems, structures? Is it in the people? And if we see here, it's more in the people than the systems, processes, and systems, because it has gone through. Now I'm sitting here wondering where I was a beneficiary, like Benson is saying. Was I beneficiary to have gone to the Maize Yala? But of course, some of us are proven, because you realize that there must be something that has been going on right there. According to me, there should be a serious change of attitude, not just to the teachers, not to the NEC, but even to the parents. Parents have also been involved in examination cheating. Some of them buy papers, buy teachers on behalf of their pupils. This is happening.
So do you think even now, as some parents believe that their children should have gotten a certain mark and they knew the schools that they will be going to, is this opening some form of, kind of say, Pandora's box?
That's
where
what I'm trying to say. The parents, there's a need for us as a nation. You can point fingers on the government, but there's a need for us as a nation actually to change our values. Because I've told you some of them are happening because of parents. Like when I was in school, some parents thought they were so connected, they could buy exams for their sons.
Or schools for that matter.
Yes, so I'm trying to say that some parents believe so. And in fact, some children believe that if they fail, it means their parents didn't do their part. So I'm trying to find even some, I've even seen this in places of work. Have you ever seen whereby you are coming to interview somebody, for example, from KBC, and somebody has been acquitted by his father, waiting for results? So I'm trying to say, let people be. Like, for example, the child has been taken to school. Let the teachers take care of the child in terms of education. You be in charge of homework, mentoring, and the rest. If you cannot do good parenting, yet you are coming to be involved in examination. So according to me, there should be serious separation of duties here. And children should be told that it's not life and death. Pressure giving them is too much. Parents also are under too much pressure. I remember when my son was going for an intake for grade 1, I was more stressed than him. And he was just running around playing. But for me, I'm so stressed up, I cannot even hold a newspaper. I'm thinking that as parents, not just pointing fingers at others, even me, we need just to know these babies have been created by God. They have a destiny. Let's do our part. Unnecessary pressure. And in fact, you are asking about children. Even parents themselves, they cheat that they got A's. There is no parent who tells his son, me, I got D.
I tell my children I failed.
Maybe all of us are grade.
No, actually, if you ask my kids, because they listen to me speak in a couple of forums, and I always tell them I'm a failure. I have failed in several aspects of life, and I tell them even in school I never got an A.
You know, honesty is the best thing. But just bringing still the conversation. Prof, as you're saying about the do or die when it comes to examinations, and the parents are, can I say, they're actually more worried than even the children themselves.
Yes.
Actually, the children don't even understand what is at stake when you're talking about if you don't go to the right school or you don't get the right grades.
Currently, every parent knows which one is the best school in this country.
Exactly.
But then, is it a question of an equal distribution of resources? For example, the teacher-learner ratio or something. Why do you want to go to Alliance?
Yeah, because
if you ask that parent, why? Because so-and-so was there some 50 years ago and they did well. What makes you think you cannot succeed in another school X?
Well, that's a conversation for another day, because when we talk about resource distribution, there are certain schools for sure. We can say shule ni shule, but there is a way. I mean, that's a conversation for another day.
They talk about school A, B, and C. They say A school is where they get the exams before even they begin studies. So I saw that analysis. So school B is where you get them few days before the examination, and C you get them on the same day. So you are in a hurry. You have no revision materials. You have no marking scheme. Anyway, I saw someone give the analysis. So not all that talk about the issue of equality in the development, preparation, administration, sitting for exam, marking it, and releasing. If there's no equality across the board, then there's no exam integrity.
Yes, so I want to wind up the program. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in and, just helping us unpack this particular issue, of the exam integrity. What is really more important? George, you've rightfully put it, that it is not so much about the academics. It's also about the competency. So just just briefly, because my director is telling me my time is over, what advice would you have for the children going forward, because I'm trying to imagine if I was in their shoes, even if I was called to a school, I know these are not my marks. How should they now focus in terms of going on to high school? And for the Form 4 leavers, as a career, a life coach, a trainer, leadership trainer, what should they look out for in terms of choosing their careers?
You see, I wanted to make a comment, and I said, have you realized that when children are learning to walk, they fall, but they never realize they fell? Because they don't consider it a failure. We are the ones who teach failure to our children. As they begin to grow, we are the ones who tell them, you failed, you did not make it. I mean, your results are unsatisfactory. We must move from that aspect and try to build ability. It is the responsibility of the parents. They must seek to understand their children and help them develop their ability. Another thing that I have looked at, we must explore the various assessment mechanisms. We cannot just continue condemning or passing judgment on our children through exams. But also to their children, I want them to understand that failure is a vital aspect of the achievement process. You can never succeed in anything in life without going through the process of failure. And people are not remembered by how many times they failed. If I was to advise the kids that feel condemned by the result process, I want them to understand that people are never remembered by how many times they failed. So their perspective must change from the judgment of the exam, and they begin to build life positively. Remember, I mentioned only 20% of what a person becomes in life, according to that research by Harvard University, is as a result of aptitude. 80% is as a result of attitude. So we must begin to develop positive attitude as we develop our ability.
Okay. Benson?
I would tell them, arise and shine, because this is your time. The results are here. The schools would be the next step. So you have to move on, because you have now to disapprove that you think is not right at the next level, because there is always a second chance. As you go to high school, then it means you have to reorganize yourself, put in the effort, and prove the system wrong, that I deserve to do better than what I was given at that particular point. Then, of course, to the parents. Parents are supposed to take a responsibility and work with their children. A parent has to understand the capabilities of their children. I know the capabilities of my children. They are not at the same level. You have to understand and encourage them, move with them, because if you do not do that, you exert a lot of mental damage, and you might be destroying rather than you thinking you are building, when you are the one advocating for higher marks, yet you did not sit for that exam. So support your children, work with them, make sure that they're getting the right support as they proceed.
Thank you so much, Benson. Prof?
Me, I will tell the children who are listening to me, who are victims in this, that crisis really make us. In fact, I usually tell people that if you have never seen crisis, if you find your life flowing very smoothly from January to December, go kneel before God and ask God whether God trusts you. Because I believe that God tries those he trusts. God tried Abraham. God tried Job. You are not alone. And I am a product of crisis. Whatever I've achieved as a professor is more of the crisis I have. People say I have I have 5 undergraduate degrees because I failed more times. I wanted to be a priest, I was fired there. I've been kicked out nearly from everywhere, even including Strathmore where I was working. And it has made me, because after that again, build myself and recreate myself and move on. So what I'm trying to say is that just keep your hope. Don't lose hope. Let this not define you, because there's more to you than just this examination that you went through.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Benson Masera here, is an education expert. Professor Ogola, governance and leadership expert, and also Yogo, who is a leadership trainer and definitely a life coach. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making the time to come in. As it's late, but you're able to make the time to come and be with us. And of course, my colleague O'Brien Kimani has been away, as you've already noticed, but we hope to have him with us next week on Tuesday. So thank you once again for your time, and hopefully that this program was worth your while and that you learned so much. In as far as, the results are concerned, it's not the end of the world. There's still so much for you as a student, as a young person, to achieve in life. So we hope that this program did go a long way in encouraging you, and even as a parent, not to look as academics as the final thing for your child. So that's where we leave it tonight. Thank you so much. My name is Maria Ambo, and hope to see you again next time.